Welcome back, Troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. We're just going to kind of have a chill day today. I've got a couple of things to pack up that have such interesting stories, I really wanted to share them with you guys. So let's start with this guy right here. One that I'm sure you're all very familiar with. Inside this big gray rectangular case sleeps a very iconic Ibanez guitar, the LACS5. In case you missed this review and demo, I had to win this on a lottery system. Now, a lot of people called foul play. Of course, Sweetwater would give it to Trogly, but no, I did not use any of my, hey, give me this guitar power or anything like that. It really was truly won in that whole lottery system. However, it definitely helps that I asked very early on, because to get this guitar, you had to go to every dealer, say, I want that guitar, hope that you were number one on that list, and that particular dealer won that particular one that you were after. I tried to grab a couple more from this series in order to, just document it, but unfortunately I was unsuccessful. But hey, I got the number one thing. So the story after all that is I put a crazy price tag on this thing. I was saying $100,000, which I seriously thought somebody might pay about $80 just for the privilege to have this, because the original retail price was somewhere around $17,000 on this. But the market for limited editions that you have to be the winner for can sometimes get crazy, so don't blame me for being the crazy guy on the price of this one. However, where did this one end up actually going? It's going to one of my collector dealer friends here. Because let's be honest, this thing, despite having a really, really awesome story, it doesn't fit in my collection at all. I'd rather have a couple more Spotlight Specials or other Norland era guitars that I really do want, which this thing can afford me quite a few of those. But he happens to have a guitar in his collection that is a perfect mate for this. You guys remember this episode? The time that Gibson made an Iceman? Yeah, so he ended up buying that guitar after I had made that video, and he was messaging me a couple of days ago. He said he got me something on Amazon because he thought it would fit good with this, and I was like, hey, do you want to be the next owner? So we worked out a quick deal there. So we need to pack this one up and get it shipped out to him because he's going to enjoy this one for quite some time. And unfortunately, I have to use the money for other things that's not guitars.
But before we continue on today, let's have a word from our cool sponsor, Original Grain, a fine watch and jewelry company. Well, I was pretty excited to find that they just recently partnered with Taylor to produce some limited edition wood watches that you can get 30% off by using code Trogly at checkout when you visit originalgrain.com/Trogly. Let's go ahead and open this care package that they've sent me to get a look at some of these. This time, instead of watches, we're going to take a look at their ring. So this is the Ebony Abalone Silver Double Barrel Ring. Pairs very well with your watches because it's made of the same reclaimed wood that Taylor uses for their instruments, and they use a tungsten metal for the inner ring. And just like the watches, you can also have the rings engraved on the inside with your name or your spouse's name, your anniversary date, whatever you really want, just let them know. So if you're impressed with what you see, which honestly isn't that hard, these are actually very nice, you can use my discount code Trogly, Trogly, at originalgrain.com/my name, Trogly, to get 30% off site-wide, anything you want. All right, thank you, Original Grain, for sponsoring tonight's episode. Let's get back to the guitars.
All things considered, I'm happy where that one's going. He's actually a big fan of Kiss, and that's where we go for our next story here. The whole reason you clicked on this particular video. This guitar has a really cool story of where it's going. And maybe it's a bit taboo to talk about, yeah, I sold something to a famous guy, but, the whole story behind this one, I had to share this. So let's get it open so we know what we're talking about. Obviously some sort of a flying V, and we haven't documented too many of those on the show in recent years. But inside here is that Flying V Custom. So if you missed this video, this is a guitar that I worked a trade deal that included my Gibson Gene Simmons bass, that new model that just came out. I wanted to check that thing out because, it's a pretty good looking Thunderbird, right? But that serial number just happened to match the birthday of the owner of Creamtone, Lonnie. And he had this thing kicking around, so he decided he wanted to work some sort of a trade with that and this, and it ended up working out. So he drove up here, we made the trade that we had talked about, and then I ended up getting to review one of these cool Flying V Customs. And then I gave it a price that I thought was an absolute steal. I mean, I've seen what these things sell for in the demo shop, and all this one really needed was a tech to go through it to get it back up to 100%. But imagine my surprise when I get an email from the people who represent Kiss saying one of the band members is interested in purchasing this guitar. So it's like, really? We're going to go from the Kiss signature bass to this thing to actual Kiss member. So apparently Paul Stanley is buying this guitar. Now, unfortunately, I tried to get like a cameo style thing of him saying, "I want your guitar," but all I got was this text message. Now, that could easily be faked, but let's be real here. That agency's website says they represent them, so it must be true, right? So I guess keep your eye out for him playing one of these things on stage. Apparently, he's got a really cool business model going on here. So he buys these guitars, he tours with them, pretty extensively, and then he sells them off to collectors who love Kiss toured, played, owned type guitars, and they get like 20, 30 grand for these things. So needless to say, I think this is going to a pretty cool home, and it's just funny how it goes from Kiss signature to a cool guitar to an actual Kiss member. I'm kind of sad that it has to end in cash, because that Gene Simmons bass apparently just brings good lucky trades. But Paul's off on a European tour right now, so I don't think he'll get this for a couple of months, but we're sending it on its way today. The next one on our little journey today is technically an unboxing, I guess, but we've already seen one of these things before. It's another one of the Japan Junior Series guitars. So let's go ahead and pop this one open and see what's going on with this. This time we've got one of those mini Stratocasters again. So this was actually, I think he had purchased the Telecaster from me, and he liked it so much that he's like, "Hey, you think I could get the Stratocaster?" And it's like, "Yeah, I can definitely import you another one." So if you're interested in one of these Japan Juniors, but you don't have somebody that knows how to get things from Japan, import, duties, taxes, all that stuff, I do have an international forwarding service. You can check that out on my New Guitar Day page. There's a hyperlink at the very end. But in case you missed those episodes, these are slightly shrunken down scale length Fender offerings. So like the Stratocaster, normally 25.5 inches, this one is shrunken down to 24. That's only 1.5 inches, but it makes the guitar feel significantly different, and they've also scaled the bodies down. You can find satin finishes and gloss finishes, and this is one of those glossy ones. I've gotta say, this actually looks really nice. I kinda like this seam line right here too. It just lines up with the trem very nicely. So if you're not the tallest person around, or you just like Jaguar type scale lengths on stuff, now you can finally get the flagship models like the Stratocaster, Telecaster, and Jazzmaster in that format. Now I did buy another one of these, the Jazzmaster, because I kind of wanted to do the review on that. So I will be packing this one up because I don't blame him. I told him it'd probably be 3 to 6 weeks before I could get to this review and demo. And that's not a lie, I'm getting backed up again. But these are great if you need a smaller scale length. For me personally, I wasn't a big fan, but I like the way these things look. They're a little bit quirky, and they're small, but not too small. Continuing on here, we've got another one that we saw a couple of months ago. This is one of the old Theodores. This is technically a re-unboxing of this one. These things are just a lot of fun. I think a lot of people initially scoffed at that $5,000 price tag for something that's a little bit quirky and out there, but in the future, I think people will appreciate these more, because it seems that people who have gotten them and actually played them have fallen in love with these beasts. I have a natural one for my own personal collection. This one was my spare, so I've got a red one and a natural yet, but now that this one's sold, I'm kind of thinking maybe I do want a complete set of these things as far as the colors go. What I thought was going to hold true has been holding true with these guys. The naturals are selling for the premium. Because let's face it, they're the coolest ones. You can see all the wood grain. It matches really well with that walnut stripe down the center. And you've got your cool autumn tree back here. But the black one, you can't see any of the wood grain. But at the same time, it's kind of got a cool color combination. So maybe I'll find one, maybe I won't. I'm not sure. I at least want to keep one of these back for my own personal collection, because prices have started to go back up. Because at first, these things were sold $5,000 brand new. Then they sold out within about a week, I would say. And then most people who bought them were flipping them, but now we've almost went through all the flipping inventory, and that's when the market decides, are these things actually worth more or not? So some of these things you just buy, hold back, don't look at the market for a couple of years, and then hey, maybe you might have something incredibly valuable. I'm really excited to see what might come out of the archive collection next, because this is the stuff I like. However, it would probably be fun to have a USA archive collection as well. That way, you don't have to have custom shop money to have fun with a weird, quirky thing. You can play around with USA style money. But another fun fact about this one, it is going to the same guy who bought my Buzzsaw prototype. Well, artist proof anyways. You can check that video out right there. So this guitar will be in good hands. Next up, we've got this guy. Interesting tale. So we unboxed this nearly a year ago, and at that time I was just so overwhelmed with all reviews, I decided just to list it, get it sold, but it kind of sat around for a little bit because apparently this isn't the most popular model in the world unless you can get like an awesome deal on it. So I ended up dropping the price, and then I was able to find a buyer on this one, and I eventually did do the review and demo. You can check that out here. Kind of an interesting guitar if you like 3 pickup Les Paul Customs that have a whole bunch of different tonal opportunities. This is a pretty sweet guitar. But one of the other main reasons that I wanted to document this one is there was a factory error on it. I mean, the whole point of the Peter Frampton custom is it's supposed to be creamed out plastics, and this came from the factory with a black one. So the person who said he would purchase this from me said, hey, if you can get that, parts warranty request in and get the correct style poker chip on it, I'll buy this from you. With a little bit of luck, inside this package should be sleeping what we need. And yes, indeed, that looks exactly like what we need. Now, you might be saying, hey, why don't you just go to Sweetwater, buy that $5 one? That's the problem. That's the Gibson USA version. You need the true historic cream version, or else it's just not going to quite look right. So that's why you had to go through the whole parts warranty request. So this one, he requested that I put it on, so let's go ahead and do that. There we go. That's looking much better now. Not sure how that left the factory like that, but whatever. It got fixed. Let's go ahead and get it packed up. And now a couple additional stories. The consigned 50s and 60s tributes, those sold really quickly. I shipped those out last week, and they found their happy, loving new homes, and I was able to get his money sent out. I also shipped out some Seymour Duncan Joe Bonamassa Custom Shop 59 pickups. So kind of an interesting story of where those things came from. Remember how I bought a collection of guitars from a family of a viewer of the show? Well, one of the guitars had swapped pickups, and when I was verifying everything, I was like, somebody probably wants those things. So I decided to restore that guitar back to the original 490 set that I just happened to have, and then sold those separately. You can check out that Bird's Eye Standard on my Reverb page. I'm surprised nobody's picked that thing up yet. That's not a bad price either. And unfortunately, the green avocado burst had to be rehomed as well. I really like that guitar. That's probably one I should have kept because I ended up liking it a lot more and more as I figured out the true history behind, there was one of these custom ordered all the way back when. But I've got to say, it went to an awesome home. Look at this guy's corner. Those are some sweet guitars. Look at the pastel blue Switchmaster. It looks like, I think they call that one the L9S up there. I gotta say, my old green burst definitely stands out in that bunch, despite all of them being pretty fancy. And sweet old Gibson banner. Another really cool one that I probably should have kept was the 1991 Gibson Les Paul Custom. That new old stock one that I was really excited to get. Yeah, unfortunately, it got some finish checking on its way over here to me. And it had some finish checking just from not being stored properly all those years. But the top on that one was just so fantastic. But the awesome story behind this one is I made an old man happy, as he said it in his message, because he said he was still a student in 1991, so seeing something brand new from that same year made him really happy. He must really like that year because just a couple months ago, he bought that Super 400 custom from me that was also birthed in 1991. Awesome collection he's building there. But I think that's going to wrap up our stories for tonight. I hope you troglodytes enjoyed tonight's episode. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will catch you tomorrow on the next one. Take care.